Good morning. This is Susan of the North, also known as Susan Hintz-Epstein, with the Rune of the Day podcast. I'm live today. I'm going to be coming live most Saturdays at 3 in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. That gives people who might be interested in the runes time to ask questions. But this being the first live afternoon stream for Rune of the Day, it might be that I'm the only one here for a while. But for anyone watching this for now or in the future, I'd like to introduce myself a little better. I received the nickname Susan of the North from a dear friend of mine who is my personal shaman. And she and her sister had been doing a podcast called The Sisters Are In that was just a lot of fun. And so I kept the nickname for my professional rune reading. But as Susan Hintz-Epstein, I've written a book called Rune Play, which I tried to write as an experiential way to learn the runes. When I was in my 20s and 30s, and I would look at the runes that I had at the time by Ralph Blum, and I really didn't have any overt understanding of what all those lines and squiggles meant. But then I'd been a Reiki healer for a while, and I'd gotten into practicing with the elements, which is part of a shaman's training. And in 2013, it was a year of really deep snow, and I didn't want to go outside to do much work or exercise. So I was looking for a book to read on my husband Alan's bookshelf, and I found the book Rune Play by Ken Meadows. And I read it, and it seemed that the runes would download themselves into my brain with an instant understanding. And later that same month, the Norns, Urder, Verdandi, and Skuld came through and met me at my mesa, which is a Peruvian form of shamanistic practice, and taught me some things about reading the weave. So I am now a rune interpreter, rune intuitive, whatever you might want to call it. But everything centers around the Norse tree of life, Yggdrasil, and the runes came when the Norse god Odin sacrificed himself to himself on that tree of life. And in his sacrifice, he understood and gathered up the runes where they had been carved at the root by the Norns. So the Norns left the runes for Odin to find. The Norns are three giantesses. Urd represents the past, Verdandi represents the present, and Skuld represents the future. And there is a form of rune reading called a rune cast, in which we have a cloth with three circles, and the runes are spilled onto the circles and read according to what appears face up when a person is interested in knowing what their next phase of life is going to bring them. Anyway, I thought that I would just be talking randomly today. So I have gotten myself a couple rune sets with me. There are, just to talk about the runes a little bit, there are 24 runes in what they call the Elder Futhark. The Futhark is the name of the alphabet. The runes, like the Hebrew letters, are also symbols with meanings for higher consciousness. And the Elder Futhark begins with Fehu for the letter F, which also means prosperity. Uruz, which is the symbol for the aurochs, strength, muscular strength, the capacity to pull through, the capacity to heal. The TH sound is thorn or thurisaz, which the name thorn says it all. It's something upon which you can prick yourself, but it also is the rune of the god Thor, who is the protector in the Norse pantheon. And he serves to protect humanity and the gods against the depredations of the powers that are larger than ordered consciousness. So you might hear of the forces in the Norse cosmos as order versus chaos, which are consciousness versus the subconscious. And there's a lot that we can say about that in relationship to this mythology also. But the fourth letter of the Norse, the Elder Futhark, is on Suz, which is the one for the gods, the Aesir. The next rune is Rido, which looks like the letter R, and it is a energy that stands for the rhythmic patterning of the universe. And the letter K, Kenaz, which is the rune for knowledge. I like to sometimes do an analogy between the creation mythologies of the Norse mythology versus the Christian mythology. And in the Norse cosmology, there is only one tree of life. And the god who is the head guy in the pantheon of the gods of the Aesir is Odin, is a god who gains knowledge, who seeks knowledge with great hunger, great fury, great passion, great creativity. So this is a path of knowledge that we walk, those of us who are attuned to this mythos. And in the Christian creation myth and the Judaic creation myth, there are two trees of life. There is the tree of good and of the knowledge of good and evil, and there is the tree of life itself. And the symbology in the Christian mythology is that humanity fell from its instinctive, intuitive connection to the rest of life. I think, this is my opinion, that was a mistake, and that the symptoms that we are seeing in the world today are here because we lost that connection, or we have been taught that we've lost that connection. But humans are part of nature. We are born in blood and gore from our mother's womb, as the animals are. You know, we come out of the dark place into the light, like the plants emerge from the soil into the sun. We are nurtured by the same things: food, water, sunshine. You know, we can correlate the different aspects of our nature: intellect, emotion, and the physical body to the earth, the moon, and the sun, and the spirit to the stars. There is no such thing as separation, except insofar as I am separate in my body. But when we rise up the tree of life, and one can compare this too with the yoga chakras, the 9 worlds on the tree of life, Yggdrasil, correspond very neatly with the chakras of the yoga tradition. When we rise up into the heart chakra and we're beginning to connect with other beings, we're never alone anymore. It's not just physical connection, but it's a spiritual connection. And the more you develop your awareness and train your attention, you can rise up further, not only through the creative expression of the voice and the hands, but through your third eye, which is the space of intuition, or into your crown, where we all connect with the highest of life source energy. So whether you're doing Reiki to pass energy on and to heal someone else's condition, or whether you are meditating and grounding and centering in your body in order to help still the random flow of thought, to focus on your life and your being, we are all connected intrinsically. I mean, when I see the trees budding this time of year in the spring, and I see the birds and I listen to their beautiful songs, I feel so much joy in my own being. I know I'm not alone in the world. Even though my husband has passed recently, I have friends, but they live at a distance. You know, it's the knowing that we're never alone. Separation is the illusion of the physical realm. There's just so much to interweave here. I'm wishing I had people coming on to ask questions, but I think that one of the things that I will do is start reading chapters from my book, Rune Play. Today, I'm just going to open it randomly, and this is interesting too. So I'll continue reading with this rune. It came up to Berkano, which is the rune of the feminine. Berkano is the feminine rune which oversees weddings, birth, and midwifery, the mysteries of menstruation, child rearing, coming of age ceremonies, ceremonies in general, mothering, clan mothers, the Disir, and the eventual entering into the age of the wise elder, or the crone. So Berkano is the feminine rune connected to motherhood, pregnancy, birth, nurture, nourishment, shelter, new ideas, new beginnings, and related life changes, such as weddings, funerals, or coming of age. The ancients held the idea of women as protectors and overseers of the tribal community, care of the family, and the elders among them were much respected. This rune is dedicated to the goddess Perkta or Berkta, named the White Shining One, after the birch tree. Berkano belongs to the Disir, the Matronae, and the Norns, including the group of women souls and birth planners who help the Norns with the work of overseeing Erleg. Erleg roughly means karma in Old Norse. The Disir are strong matriarchs within the ancestral line of Norse clans, and they have also been associated with the Valkyries, Norns, and Vetter, or land spirits. The Matronae are mother goddesses, appearing in groups of 3, worshipped throughout Germania, eastern Gaul, and northern Italy during the occupation by the Roman army from the 1st century to the 5th. All reflect the divine feminine in her fullest empowerment as maiden, mother, and crone. In ancient times, women managed their communities of tribes and villages while men were away hunting or at war. Nordic women were practical, efficient, productive, and expedient. They had to make all the hours of the day count for taking care of children and the elderly, the animals who supplied meat, milk, and wool, the crops, which would be needed to eat through the cold months, and the washing, spinning, and weaving of the wool and flax into the clothing for the kindred. The fact that a woman could bring forth life from her own body may have been regarded as a journey toward the land of the dead. Certainly, the women were the ones who were considered to bear the gift of Seidr, or divination, and the ones with the strongest gifts were the shamans, able to travel within the realms of the dead and the living. When Berkano shows up with Perthro, it is indicative of the women's mysteries. Ancient ways of feminine initiation included birth and birthing rites, coming of age for young women upon their first menses, and marital and death rites, Gender-specific rituals were used by the Githia, the priestess, for those women who accompanied men to war or on the hunt. Death was a fact of life for the northern peoples. They considered women who had borne living children to have come close to the realm of death and returned alive. Women held a special power to work with the spirits. When Berkana is drawn, it can portend an actual birth or the start of a creative endeavor, a wedding, or other initiatory ceremony. When Berkana shows up in reversal, especially in regard to a woman who is kind and giving in nature, there's often a lack of self-nurturing due to an uneven amount of giving to one's family, job, or community that has led to an inner state of exhaustion. The wellspring is depleted, and to take better charge of one's own self-care is advised. And just to make each chapter on each rune, to give the reader a chance to engage with the energy a little better, I've posed some questions. So the ones that I've written down for Berkana in this book are: whether a man or woman, how well do I relate to my feminine side? And in your journal, explore the attitudes that come up. How do I chiefly nurture and nourish others or myself? What am I giving birth to? Am I creating new life, art, beauty, music, literature, dance, or drama? What am I dying to in order to have more life energy? Is there a time when I seek initiatory experiences? How do I express this? Consider creating a ceremony of initiation for coming of age life events. For example, I am now 60 and I renounce the concept of aging uselessly, so I create a ceremony that welcomes me to my crone years. So if you are interested in further readings from this book, you can go to Amazon Kindle, look up Susan Hintz-Epstein book Rune Play, and you can get it either in a Kindle book or a paperback. This is Susan of the North, and I am disengaging from this live podcast today. If you come on and would like topics addressed specifically to your questions, please leave them in the comments below.